If there is one thing the Green Bay Packers have to do this week to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, it's tackle. I know it seems simple. I know it seems obvious, and it is. But it's even more important this week against this Chiefs team in particular. I'll explain why. Plus, our pal Lily Zhao gets us reset after a monster win on Turkey Day. Some surprising players we want to shout out, and a lot more on today's show. Let's go.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. This episode of Locked On Packers brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL for that first deposit match up to $100. In the past, the idea with the Chiefs was you stop the big play and you stop the offense. And we've seen over the last couple of years at various times this Chiefs offense hit the skids a little bit when teams put a roof on everything over the top and make them drive 12 plays, 80 yards. This is, if it sounds familiar, exactly the way the Packers want to play. Now, whether or not they've actually been able to succeed at doing it is another question, of course. But in 2021, when the Packers played this Chiefs team extremely tough with Tyreek Hill, they succeeded, for the most part, in making the Chiefs have to be efficient down to down, drive to drive, play to play, and they couldn't do it. This version of the Chiefs is getting it done a little bit differently, and this is not the same Chiefs offense. This is not the same version of Patrick Mahomes. This is not the same group of playmakers. Travis Kelce is very famous. He is still a very good player. He is not as consistent as he once was. It has nothing to do with Taylor Swift. And their receiver room, for whatever reason, the loss of Juju Smith-Schuster has just thrown their receiver room into chaos. And Kadarius Toney is basically a non-factor. Sky Moore never took the step that they needed him to. Rashee Rice has been a nice addition, had a nice game last week, but there were times early in the season when he couldn't get on the field. And if all of this is sounding familiar, it should. Even Patrick Mahomes, who currently, of the guys, certainly of the guys playing for sure, but I don't think any of those caveats are that necessary anymore. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. He hasn't played like the best quarterback this season. This has been the worst version of Patrick Mahomes that we've seen in his NFL career. That doesn't mean he's not dangerous. That doesn't mean he's not still incredible. He is, and he is. You have to defend this team differently, or at least you have to do different things than you used to in order to beat them. This is not a team that is winning with big plays. Now, part of that is because teams are saying, we're going to put two safeties back and make you throw underneath. But even when they get opportunities to throw it deep, Patrick Mahomes has not been on the same page with his receivers. He has not played well. Some of that is on Mahomes. Some of that is on his receivers. Like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, you would want to make the catch that he dropped that could have potentially won them the Eagles game. There are so many things that are different about the MVP race, about the NFC playoff picture, if he does that. But I was looking at the numbers because our pal Jake Morley had been tweeting about how the Love and Mahomes struggles have been parallel this year, in that both of them, for some of the high-level flashes that you've seen from Jordan Love, and of course, all of the high-level play we know Patrick Mahomes is capable of, the deep ball has been inconsistent. This is where I'm going to blow your minds, especially if you haven't watched the Chiefs week in and week out. Patrick Mahomes has been one of the worst deep ball throwers in the league this year, worse than Jordan Love. Yes, I said worse than Jordan Love. And in fact, it's not, frankly, that close. Patrick Mahomes is 34th out of 40 qualifying QBs in passing grade on throws over 20 yards this season. I'm going to repeat that. Patrick Mahomes is 34th. There are only 32 teams. He's 34th in passing grade on throws over 20 yards. 40 qualifying QBs in terms of having enough attempts. Only Tommy DeVito. Yes, I sleep at home. My mom does my laundry. Tommy DeVito. Only Tommy DeVito has a higher rate of turnover-worthy plays on deep throws this season than Patrick Mahomes. He's 19th in big-time throw percentage. This is a Pro Football Focus stat. I haven't loved the stat, the consistency of it. It is one of those subjective things, but these are qualitative metrics. So there's going to be some subjectivity in that. It passes the eye test, though. He hasn't made those wow throws down the field. And I think, frankly, we overrated some of the throws down the field in the past because Tyreek Hill was Tyreek Hill. Patrick Mahomes could just throw it to open space and trust that if it's 50 yards down the field, Tyreek Hill is fast enough to go run underneath it, and the safety isn't. I don't say that to undercut the quality of play that Patrick Mahomes has had in the aggregate. He's been incredible. He's been the best quarterback in the league basically since he got there. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers certainly have some conversations. Aaron Rodgers has won 2 MVPs in the same span that Patrick Mahomes has won 2 MVPs, but it just hasn't been the same this season. And the offense, as a result of not being able to push the ball down the field, has had to live a lot more on short throws. Through 12 weeks, no team has generated more total EPA on passes behind the line of scrimmage. This is from Arjun Menon. Than the Kansas City Chiefs. It's not close. They have been really good at generating big plays, and a lot of them off of receiver screens, tight end middle screens, running back swing, all sorts of unique creative concepts that Andy Reid puts together. Remember Andy Reid with Brian Westbrook and the best screen game I've ever seen in Philadelphia. After just kind of slightly improving on the Packers screen game, which in the mid-90s under Mike Holmgren was previously the best screen game I'd ever seen. No one generates more yards after catch on throws behind the line of scrimmage than the Kansas City Chiefs. Only the Dolphins are even close. Washington is well behind, and even that trio, they're well in front of everyone else. Patrick Mahomes has a shade under 3,000 passing yards on the season. Over 850 of them have come after the catch. Not just after the catch, period. They have come after the catch on throws behind the line of scrimmage. We're talking about more than a quarter of his total productivity has come on throws behind the line of scrimmage. If he were you did blind resume and he were a quarterback prospect, you'd go, not a first rounder based on this profile. That's what we're talking about here. And it seems strange when we're talking about the Chiefs that is the place where this offense is. But the reason I opened with that means you have to tackle is that means everything this offense does is predicated on throwing it short and letting guys go make plays. Letting guys go make your defense miss in space. And the Packers have been an inconsistent tackling team. Even with all of those issues, as I put them to you, the Chiefs are 6th in EPA per play on offense. They're 8th in success rate. They are still a very good offense living this way. They're just not destroying the world the way that they have in years past. So if they're going to throw it short, you have to do the thing that we'd love to praise guys like Jair Alexander and Russell Douglas. And now at times we're seeing Carrington Valentine do it. We saw Eric Stokes do it last year, the year before. You have to play these screens physically at the point of attack, but also they're going to throw the double screens, those kinds of plays that the Packers like to work, where you go screen to one side, receiver screen to one side, you come back and you throw the throwback running back screen. You have to play disciplined too. A lot of this stuff is like as schemed up gets. So you have to tackle and you have to play disciplined. And if you can do that, then now you're playing in a world where the Chiefs are going to have problems getting, past 21, 24 points if you tackle them effectively. Not in a vacuum, but that's what you have to do to slow this Chiefs offense down. It is, of course, easier said than done. But for this Kansas City Chiefs team that is playing a different way this year, the best thing you can do against them is make them, again, go 12 plays, 14 plays, and see if you can get them to slow up a little bit. They're only averaging 23.3 points per game this season. The thing is, defensively, they're playing really, really well, holding opponents under 17. This defense is going to be a tall task. The Packers are going to have their issues scoring on this defense. But if you can keep this offense in check, you give yourself a chance. And the only way they can do that is to tackle. All right, we're going to get to our pal Lily Zhao in just a second here on Locked On Packers. Don't watch the game on an empty stomach. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Did the game go into timeout? You have time to order it. DoorDash. Is it halftime? Ordering time. 2-minute warning. You got it. That's your cue to order. I like to order like late third quarter, early fourth quarter when I know, okay, about a half an hour. I have time. The food's going to show up just when the game is getting over. Now I have my live stream. So sometimes you have to time it differently. Depends on if the game that I'm watching is the Packers or if it's a different game. I got a lot of systems, but all of them fit with DoorDash. And I love DoorDash. This is a product that I've used forever and continues to be my go-to when I need something. And not just the food that I love from the restaurants that I love, but you can order chips and dip from the grocery store, buns if you forgot, if you're making burgers. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter promo code LOCKED23. That's 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23, subject to change, and terms do apply. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. The NBA in-season tournament is here. And so now one of the fun things that I like to do is combine to make a daily fantasy lineup, the NBA with the NFL. So you can take LeBron James, 3-pointers made, and Christian Watson receptions, and you get it like 10.5. You can decide they're going to combine for more. You got a lineup, baby. And now you can win up to 25 times your money, depending on who you put in that lineup and what you think they're going to produce. It couldn't be easier. Daily fantasy made easy. Made easy. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. They make PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. This is how you should be using your sports knowledge. Create a daily fantasy lineup and make some money. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100, especially if you're not in the fantasy football playoffs. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today. They're here for you 24/7, covering the top stories of the day with the local experts on Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Joining me now after the mini bye, because the Packers played on Thanksgiving, a holiday edition of Victory Monday. We even got Victory Friday, Victory Black Friday. Lily Zhao from Fox 6 joins me now, hopefully digested from the turkey and the stuffing and the mashed potatoes. Her lukewarm take that mashed potatoes were her favorite thing on the Thanksgiving table. Lily's, how you doing?
Peter, doing well. I've thoroughly had way too much turkey, ham, all the fixins you can ask for. So I'm turkey dayed out, back to the regular food, but doing well, adjusting to the cold of Wisconsin, but we're trucking through. But I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm good. I don't know that I've recovered yet from that weekend, because I also my daughter was baptized, my brother-in-law.
Oh.
They got Greek married, so I had a lot of like, I had Thanksgiving and then a day and then 2 more days of parties. So I need a break, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And Christmas is just around the corner. Kind of like the Packers. They get a little bit of a break, and now they have to face Patrick Mahomes here coming up against the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's go back a month, Lily. Things had gotten dark. They go on this losing streak. The Packers do. They lose to the Vikings. That feels kind of like rock bottom, because you can't stop Jaron Hall in the closing minutes. How confident were you then? What degree of probability would you have put on them being in this position now, having just blasted the Lions and a half game out of the playoffs right now?
I will put my foot in my mouth or whatever and say, for all the believers out there, I don't think I was one of them. And, realistically, when you looked at the product that they put out on the field a month ago or 6 weeks ago, you kind of have to feel the same way, right? It just was a team that was always getting in its own way. And when they were given opportunities to win games, they just couldn't find that extra gear to finish things off. I think that the last month, we've seen improvements every single week to turn my thinking into this team could theoretically make a run at the end of the year, Kansas City game withstanding. But again, if you'd asked me, 6 weeks to 2 months ago, I don't know if I would have believed it, because guys were not playing well. We were still talking about execution issues. There were penalties galore. They just couldn't do anything offensively. And then defensively, they were doing their best to keep afloat, but there was no bright light at the end of the tunnel. But that luckily has changed, where I'm seeing lots of bright light, Peter.
Oh, the lights are bright, and they're going to be bright this weekend for sure. It almost feels a little anticlimactic, because it's like, the team is going in such a great direction, and then they got to play the boogeyman of the NFL over the last 5 years, Patrick Mahomes. But at the same time, Lily, I think some people felt that last week. Like, isn't it great? Jordan Love has his best game after his best game after his best game. But they got to play the Lions, and they're going to get their butts kicked by the Lions. And then they did the kicking, and they had some steel-toed boots on Thursday. It just seemed unlikely that they would be able to play like this. Is there something you can point to? I mean, we kind of had this conversation last week, but now that we've seen it again, is there something you can point to where you just go, yeah, this is kind of the glue holding everything together right now?
Outside of just executing, I think it's just finding that next level of confidence. I think it was, Matt LaFleur had talked to Jordan Love about that first play and didn't really want to commit to it, but Jordan said, let's do it. And he not only said, let's do it, but he executed it well. And so did Christian on the other end, making that big catch. And that, I think, set the tone. Because when I was watching it on TV, I said, holy cow. I mean, they just completed a 53-yard touchdown or pass And then 4 plays later, they go and score a touchdown. They set the tone early. They didn't let Detroit get in their heads, and they really got after Jared Goff. And that's the kind of formula that we want to see, right? We want to see them rattle the quarterback, and we want this offense to take control and not just say, hey, we'll kind of linger in the game and have our defense give us opportunities. We're going to go out there and score a touchdown. So maybe just finding that extra gear of confidence and playing better that kind of fuels the fire on both ends. And I think that's probably been the product the last month that we've seen.
It's sort of like the old, you need to get a job, but in order to get a job, you need experience. But in order to have experience, you need to get a job. And so there's this cycle of, okay, we need a little bit of confidence to play better, but I'm not playing well. So how am I going to get the confidence to play better? And, you know, that's it, to do the old Don Draper, like that's what the money's for in a lot of ways. Like you got to just go out and do it. But some of this does seem like a mentality where they played so scared against the Raiders and the Broncos. Against the Lions, they said, we want the ball. They did the Matt Hasselbeck, we want the ball and we're going to score. And they got the ball and they scored. And that just feels night and day difference from what we saw from this team. And it really does seem like the confidence is just rolling. It's rolling downhill right now. And they're getting contributions from everywhere. Even no Luke Musgrave, not a big deal. No Aaron Jones, we'll figure it out. And they've been doing that. It does seem like someone hired them. They got a little bit of experience and now they can do the job. Now they're a qualified candidate.
Exactly. And you have to give them all credit for sticking with it, right? You know, again, I think these guys knew the product that they eventually would want to put out on the field, but it took maybe 10 weeks to get there. It took some time to eventually say, this is what we believe our offense can be. And now we can finally show everybody that this is what it can be. You got to get Matt LaFleur credit on his play calling. I think you put those guys in great positions to succeed. And then, of course, just executing at a high level. We haven't seen it in such a long time. But when you look at that first quarter, it felt like that Packers-Lions game back at Lambeau when they were just boat racing Green Bay. And you're thinking, this is the first quarter? I mean, we had fumbles galore and touchdown passes. And we're like, this is the kind of version of Packers football that I think these guys want to get to on a consistent basis. And now it's, can they do what they did in that first quarter, but do it for 4 or for 3 more and make it a whole game? That's what I want to see them accomplish the rest of the year.
All right, we're going to get to more with our pal Lily Zhao here on Locked On Packers in just a second. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It's not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. You want to cast a wide net. And it's so easy to do that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. The process is intuitive, quick, and easy. And they even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. They're the experts. Let them make your life easier. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, subscribe, and you'll be a part of the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. The question that I keep thinking about now is, okay, when they came into the season, did they think that this was who they were going to be? Or does this even surpass what their expectations were, even at this point in the season? Because like, I guess I never really thought it was going to look like this on a consistent basis. And I don't know, it seems like this is kind of just who they are now.
I think so. And I'm sure if you ask the guys, they would say, oh, we expected this, or
yeah, of course. They're always going to say, oh yeah, we thought it'd be great.
Yeah. Or, we can be so much better. But, I think we talked about the situation that Jordan Love was in, right? If you put him in a room with veteran players, maybe he gets there quicker. But the fact that he's able to do it with young guys around him and they're getting there together, I think the ceiling is a lot higher than I think we thought of coming into the season. But now that the ceiling is higher, it's can they stay there and can they compete consistently at that level? I think that's the next level that they have to reach. But I think for these guys, they believe that there are a lot better things out there for them. They have a favorable schedule outside of Kansas City, and the playoff picture, it's still there, Peter. So it's encouraging.
Oh, it's not just there. Like it's on a 60-inch LCD screen. Like it's in 1080i. Like it is right there for them. It's on the Jerry World Jumbotron at this point, a half game out. I was thinking about this game in 2021, the Jordan Love first ever start. And he's the metaphor of his parents way up in the stands. Like it's almost a little too on the nose. He's come so far from that place. What to your eyes is the biggest difference that you see with Love from what we saw in that game, albeit on like crazy short week, on the road, on a team that has Super Bowl aspirations? Davante Adams is recovering from COVID. Aaron Rodgers is going on Pat McAfee and talking about all kinds of stuff that we're not going to get into. But on the field from Jordan Love, or maybe it is a more soft skill thing. What do you think is the biggest difference in Jordan Love from then to now?
I feel bad preaching the same thing, but I do think it's just the confidence, knowing that, listen, this is his first NFL start. It was against the Chiefs in Kansas City at Arrowhead. And that's a tough go for any quarterback, especially in such a hostile environment with little time to really prep and not really playing a lot with your number ones. That's going to be a tough go for anybody. But now that you look at him 2 years later, I feel like he embraces these big primetime games and says, listen, Pat Mahomes, obviously Super Bowl quarterback, MVP level quarterback, but I can still play at that level as well in my first year. So I think he really has embraced that I'm the guy mentality. I mean, we've seen it on the field. He's able to escape pressures and he's keeping his eyes downfield. He's dialing up great throws and making good decisions. I think that just confidence, he's kind of exuding that now. And I think he really does embrace these big primetime games when the Packers are in the spotlight.
It is so easy to be impressed with the progress that he's made. I mean, you watch him, the footwork, the ability to push the ball down the field. Over the last month, he's been one of the best deep ball throwers in the league. And that was, after a stretch in the middle of the season, we're like, is he ever going to complete a deep ball ever again? I don't know. We'll see. I just feel like they're just from like a game plan standpoint, they have such a better feel for what he is and what he can do now that I expect him to be in a much better position this time around. I want to talk to you about some guys that have surprised you this season. It's about the calendar's about to turn. We're about to get into December. No more rookies. I don't want to hear rookie anymore. No one's a rookie anymore. So who are the players that jump out to you, whether it's for good or for ill? You're like, oh, this player has really surprised me this season.
Oh man, that's a good question. I will say, let me think here. I mean, the easy answer is Jaden Reed. We've talked about him, but I will say, I think the other answer for me would be Dontavian Wicks. I mean, he was coming into a room where, you had Christian, you had Romeo, there was a lot of hype around Jaden and what he could do. And then you have a guy named Dontavian Wicks, who's, his presence would have been great when they played the Lions, but, he didn't play. And I think he's cleared the concussion protocol. He's going to be hopefully returning soon. But I think his impact has been pretty good for this team. And he certainly surprised me in that regard. So I would say Dontavian has been a big one. I know, we're not hearing.
Did you see Jason Vrabel compared him to Davante Adams just in the way that he moved? They were sort of like,
no, I did not.
That was the one that made me go, I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me. Like, okay, that's a name to invoke, but he does have that very, he called it that basketball style, like the crossover, the fluidity in the suddenness that is so special with Davante. Dontavian not as explosive maybe, but there is some of that movement style. I can see it. I don't have the courage to invoke Davante Adams out of respect for Davante, but I really like the Wicks pick. What about Rudy Ford? Like, I feel like I know he's been hurt, but I just feel like he's been so much steadier than I thought he would be this season. And he's really been the steadiest presence in that safety room. I feel like he's earned a shot to say, I'm the starter here in 2024, which is not something I was prepared to say at all at the start of the season.
For sure. And I think he's also made some key interceptions as well. Like he's really been a ball hawk this year. And I hope once he gets back to 100% healthy, I know you missed a couple games, like you mentioned, due to injury, but when he's been on the field, he's made a big impact. And to say, going into this year, it was safe. The safety room was a big question mark. It was, oh, we have Rudy and oh, we have Darnell, but who's going to step up? And granted, Darnell's been out with injury and you have Rudy back there who's holding his own and he's playing well. And I think you need that kind of veteran presence back there per se when guys have been in and out in the secondary all year long. So I think he really has earned himself a spot and a chance to say, I can be that guy and I should be that guy for this Packers team.
Anyone, I don't want to force you. So if there isn't anyone where you want to have an answer, I have an answer. But if you don't, that's fine. Anyone that you're like, I really thought we were going to get a lot more this year from this player. And I'm pretty surprised, not just disappointed, but surprised because you thought it would be better.
That's a good question. I don't know if I have an outright answer, but I think for me, I expected Anders to trend upwards. I think he started out pretty strong, and then I think he's missed a PAT the last 3 games, which is not something you want to see.
Not ideal.
Not ideal. And he certainly has the leg and is capitalized on some field goals. But I think I would have liked to see him be more consistent because I feel like the more you play, the better you have to be, right? So I think he's kind of maybe hitting a lull, but he's still keeping Packers in games here. So it's not to say he's not doing his job, but he could be better. But I can't think of anybody.
So the name that I feel like Christian Watson is the obvious name, but I'm not going to do that because it's the obvious answer. I've always been a fan of John Runyan Jr. and I just feel like
yes.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Like I really have been on his corner, and I felt like when he was playing well, the Packers kept trying to like give Royce Newman chances and Jake Hansen chances, and I'm just like, can you just play the player who's good? And then this year he's been ungood. Like he's been very bad, and I'm just like, now it's sort of like the old joke about college football, who the most popular player on any college campus is the backup quarterback, because everyone's just like, we got to play him. That's the guy that you got to play. Yeah. But I just feel like Sean Ryan has earned the shot. I want to see him play. And I just expected a lot more out of John Runyan Jr. and we haven't seen it so far. It's pretty disappointing. And it sucks for him too, because he's in a contract year. I don't know what kind of deal he's going to be able to get on the open market. Is he going to get a starting guard job on the open market? I don't know. We'll see.
That's a good point. You did bring up a good point there. And like you mentioned, it is disappointing because I think when they all brought him in, we're thinking like, oh, he'll be one of the key guys on this offensive line, but he's had very bad, untimely penalties and certainly he's gotten beaten a bunch. So I don't know what's really going on there, but he certainly has to improve because I think if he doesn't, I really do think that Sean Ryan deserves that spot in the long term until he's proven otherwise, right? And so I know that is disappointing, and being in a contract year, it's even more amplified because you want to keep that job here. So yeah, you're right. It's been a very disappointing season for him, for sure.
And for all his troubles, he gets Chris Jones this week. Congratulations, John Runyan Jr. Good luck with that one. Speaking of, and let's close it out here with this, Lily. What is the pathway to your eyes that the Packers can take to get this game? They're 6.5-point underdogs, according to our friends at FanDuel, at home. What do they have to do to get a win?
I think it's not as simple as this, but I think turnovers and I think keeping Jordan Love clean. I think that'll be the two big things because the Chiefs,
simple but not easy.
Simple but not easy. The Chiefs will come at you. They're top 4 in sacks this year. They're going to get after Jordan Love. But I think if the offensive line can play like they did against Detroit and keep him clean, give him time to throw, that's a boost. And then on the other hand, if they can just take away opportunities from Patrick Mahomes, that also helps because if you can take the ball away 2 or 3 times, that's taking points off the board for this Kansas City team. So I think turnovers and protecting Jordan Love, and maybe they have a shot.
Protect the ball first and foremost. Don't give Patrick Mahomes extra opportunities. It's going to be tough to get takeaways against them. Patrick Mahomes has that voodoo luck of like he'll throw a ball right to a DB and the DB will be so surprised he'll just drop it. I don't know what the deal is. His first 3 seasons in the league, he threw a preposterously low number of interceptions for his turnover-worthy play rate, and actually has a higher turnover-worthy play rate this season than Jordan Love. I don't know if you knew that. So I'm excited to see this one, Jordan Love versus Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be a good one. We'll be back with you next week, Lily. We'll talk to you then.
Can't wait. Thanks, Peter.
All right, thanks to Lily for joining the show. Always great to talk to her. Back tomorrow, crossover Thursday. Locked on Packers, Locked on Chiefs, as we get you set for one of the marquee matchups of the weekend. Yes, I said it. That's true. It's a real thing. So a lot more to come on Locked on Packers. And go check out what we're doing over at the Elite. Subtext, still going strong over there. So follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked on Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast. iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked on Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And anytime you want to come hang out with us live on our YouTube page, which will be after the game this weekend, go do that. Subscribe to us there so you can stay Locked on Packers.